Hello everyone! Today we're discussing why we chose to move to San Miguel and if we would do it again today.
We've been here for over 16 years now, and we've seen a lot of changes, both personally and with the city, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing is, why did we choose to move to San Miguel de Allende? What was the initial attraction to this place?
Well, initially we saw, this is going to sound crazy, but we were trying to figure out where we wanted to move to in the world to start our business. And we thought about many places. We finally decided that we didn't want to be too far from the United States because we wanted to be closer to our family and our parents in case of an emergency. So we decided on Mexico instead of Europe or Central America or somewhere else. We came across San Miguel because we saw it on TV.
Yeah.
We saw it on a show, and we had never been here before. My father is from the coast, from the west coast of Mexico, in the Estado de Guerrero. I had really only been there. We'd never been inland, and we decided to come here for, it was like a 10-day trip to explore the possibilities of moving, living, and working here in San Miguel de Allende.
We knew that we wanted to leave the States and go somewhere in the world. We have this passion for exploration and travel, and neither of us was happy with our job. We really didn't know exactly where we would land at that point. We knew we wanted to leave, that's all we knew. And we heard about San Miguel and we decided to take this trip, but it could have easily have been Bangkok or Antigua or some other place around the world. But
Yeah.
for the reasons that Antonieta said, that it's close to home, this hit the sweet spot for us.
At that time, we were 35 years old when we came here
Yeah.
to do research.
Yeah.
It was August 2005.
And we knew that we had to reinvent ourselves. We were too young and we didn't have enough money and savings to just flat out retire.
No.
So we had to brainstorm ideas of how we can abandon our careers and start fresh with a new path. And back then, of course, we didn't have the options to work online.
Yeah,
Different things
that was not an option back then.
remote working was not even a concept back then. But we knew we liked to travel, we knew we liked to meet new people, and it occurred to us that we could do something like a bed and breakfast, which is what we ended up doing. And San Miguel was the perfect spot for that because it has a big attraction. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which
Yeah.
at the time it wasn't, but I think it became
Within a couple of years. Yeah.
a few months before we opened, I think it was designated a World Heritage Site. And by the way, I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but and also notice that we are in a different location. Today we decided to come up to the roof and record on our terrace this morning and capture a little bit of the morning sounds for you.
I don't know if you can hear the train off in the distance and a rooster back that way.
Yeah, and some birds that are kind
Yeah, so it's the
flying
morning
by.
sounds of San Miguel.
So what first attracted us to San Miguel de Allende?
Well, when we saw it, we saw how colorful it was, and we also read about the weather and how nice the weather can be all year round, which was a big deal to me because one of the big reasons why I wanted to leave San Francisco, where I was born and raised my whole life until we moved here, was the weather. Because we lived in the city proper, and so it was always foggy and cold, even though outside of San Francisco can be very warm. The city itself is cold.
Yeah.
And foggy. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to move somewhere sunny, but not too hot and not humid. And so we knew we didn't want to live at the beach.
Yes, we knew that.
We knew we didn't want to live at the beach. The beach is not our things for us personally. So we wanted somewhere with good weather that was colorful and would bring us happiness and joy, which at the time we were kind of missing.
Big time. We lived in a place in the city that was foggy most of the day, most year round. And just coming to Mexico, coming to San Miguel, and just having the sunshine. You know, it's not hot right now. It's about 8 in the morning and it's nice and chilly. It's in the 50s.
Let's say it's 59 degrees right now.
But it's nice and bright and sunny.
But it's not 59 degrees San Francisco.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Because look, we don't even have sweaters on and
Yeah.
it feels really nice.
It's comfortable. It's this dry climate that just, you don't get that misty, cold moisture on your skin that makes you freeze when it's cool or makes you sweat extra when it's hot.
Yeah.
It's a nice environment. So that was a big draw. And then since we wanted to do a bed and breakfast, San Miguel is a big tourist destination for people from the United States and Canada and also from other parts of Mexico. But at the time, we weren't really going to move to San Miguel yet. We were just here on a recon, and We just happened to meet somebody that gave us the deal of the century. And by the end of that trip, we had made the decision to pull the trigger and make the move. We also felt safe here. We had also done a little bit of research about the safety in this part of Mexico, and safety was a big concern for us. We wanted to make sure that wherever we ended up, we wouldn't have to worry about our personal safety. And
Yeah, that was important too.
and there's a big foreign community here that made the transition for us relatively easily because there was a network of people like us that had made the move.
Yeah, and although we do have Mexican friends, you tend to gravitate towards what you know. We do have a community of friends who are mostly from the United States that are about our age. A lot of them have kids, a lot of them don't. And so we were able to build a community of friendship.
Yeah, really quickly. I mean, within a matter of weeks. You were here already full time. I was still working in the States. That's a whole other story. But you met a lot of people, a lot of
I made
friends.
one friend and she introduced me to tons of people. Within the year, we knew a lot of people in town.
Moving forward to now living in San Miguel, initially, our big purpose of moving here, aside from the fact that we wanted a whole new life for ourselves, was to do the business. And we thought that it would be just a breeze, just a walk in the park. Within 6 months, we'd be fully booked and I'd be able to quit my job in the States and join Antonieta down here. That wasn't the reality, though.
That was not our reality at all. When we first opened, within the couple of months, the swine flu hit. I don't know if you all remember the swine flu of the summer of 2009. The few reservations we did have all canceled. They didn't want to fly to Mexico or come here. So we weren't making any money and we had staff and all those things. And so you had to stay and continue working in San Francisco to help pay for everything here. And I was living here on my own, running the business for a while.
Yeah, and the other thing that happened that was huge was, at the time, was the recession that we had back then in 08 and 09. And so we arrived here right as the stock market was bottoming out and everybody was losing their jobs and nobody was traveling.
Yeah.
So between that, so between that and the swine flu, we had no business most of the first year that we opened.
Yeah, that was really tough.
It was a little bit disheartening for us because we had these big dreams of moving to San Miguel and living our new lives and being able to afford our new lives. And the reality was I had to keep working in the States for a few more years while the economy improved and while people began to travel to Mexico again.
Yeah, you lived in San Francisco for 5.5 more years before you quit and moved and joined me here.
Yeah, because it took us 3 years to get to our break-even point here in San Miguel. So the first 3 years, my extra income was supplementing the costs of the business here. And then we wanted to just make sure that it would sustain and grow. And so I kept working for a little bit more. And finally, 5.5 years later,
we said, forget it. You just need to quit and move here because we can't do this long distance thing anymore. And it's costing us a lot of money for you to fly here. We just were done. We didn't want to live apart anymore. So at that point, you quit your job and moved here. And we just took the chance.
5.5 years later, finally, San Miguel de Allende in Mexico met our expectations, but it wasn't an overnight success. It did take,
it took a while.
It really took years. The next thing we wanted to discuss is, has anything changed with respect to the city over the 16 years that we've been here?
Lots of changes. The city has grown tremendously. It used to be more of a small town when we got here, and now it's feeling much more city-like. Good or bad, it has grown. There's a lot more people living here, but at the same time, in my opinion, I think that San Miguel has still maintained its Mexican charm and
its small town charm.
There's still more Mexican people that live here than foreigners. And you might hear in other videos or on social media that, oh, San Miguel, there's too many Americans there, too many old people living there. But that's not true. When you go outside, there's like 20 locals to one foreigner. So yes, you might go sit in the jardín in the main square and you'll see a lot of retired people sitting there chit-chatting with one another because they have the time. So they're gonna go sit and hang out and talk about their day with each other. But there's still a bustling Mexican town here with real Mexican people living their lives, doing their jobs and getting from point A to point B. and doing their thing. And I don't feel like this is just all Americans.
You say 20 locals to one foreigner. In fact, it's even bigger than that. I looked up the census for 2020, and there's only a little bit over 2.5% of the population of San Miguel de Allende are foreign born. That's it. It's not 10% like we hear all the time. It's not 15%, 20%. It's only 2.5%.
I think it might feel like there are more foreigners here because the historical center part is small, and that's where most of the tourists and the foreigners who live here, we hang out, we go to dinner, that's where all the activity is. But you go outside of that city center and it's just real people living.
Yeah, for sure. And you hit the nail on the head. It's the tourism gives this perception that there are more foreigners here, but most of the people that you'll see are visitors.
Yeah, and then people say, oh, well, it's just a bunch of old people, but I don't feel like that either. Not anymore, at least. There's more and more and more younger people, younger families with their children who live here, but you might not see them out sitting on a park bench in the middle of the day because
They're working.
They're working.
Yeah.
Their kids are in school, the parents are working, so you don't see them hanging out because they're not retired.
Yeah, exactly. One positive thing that I've seen in terms of changes in San Miguel is that we have more creature comforts here. When we first moved here, it really did feel like we're going to this remote place in the middle of Mexico. Now, for example, internet is excellent here. We have download speeds of over 300 megabits per second, and upload speeds that are even faster than that.
Yeah.
Whereas when we first moved here, we were lucky to get maybe 1 or 2, 3 at best. So that's a big change. Back then, we couldn't, when Netflix first started streaming services.
You'd get the spinning wheel every time you were watching a movie or something because the speeds weren't fast enough to watch the movie.
Yeah.
But I think that because the internet has gotten so much faster, it has allowed a lot of people to work remotely from here. So that's why we've gotten a lot of younger people living here.
And then the other thing that we used to do in the beginning was, for our business, we wanted nice high thread count bed sheets and different things like that to really give this luxurious feeling to our actually very accessible B&B. But we couldn't find any of that stuff here. So I remember a couple times in the very beginning, we'd drive to the border to do some shopping runs.
Yeah, we don't need to do that anymore.
We don't have to do that anymore. And that's been a while, maybe at least 10 years or maybe even more since we've done that, because we have everything here. And
and if we don't have it here, we have it in Querétaro or somewhere nearby, so we don't have to go all the way to the border, to Laredo, to look for things anymore. Tourism has changed and it fluctuates. That's the thing about San Miguel is, for example, before the pandemic, tourism was at its probably highest point. And then after the pandemic, it has fluctuated. Some months are busier than others. The summer is very slow. So it fluctuates. It's not predictable like it once was.
Yeah, I think leading up to the pandemic, like you said, San Miguel was the it spot for Mexico, for wedding destinations and just for visitors in general. And now I think it's shifted a little bit to other parts of Mexico. I think Oaxaca's a hot spot now.
Oaxaca's become the hot spot for tourism, for weddings, for different things, because their prices were lower than San Miguel. But what we've heard from friends who do go to Oaxaca, they have said that the prices are going up.
Yep.
The restaurants are getting expensive. The weddings are getting expensive, and so who knows what the next hot spot will be. But as you become popular and prices rise, then maybe people are looking for a more economical place, and so it changes where it might be.
Another change that we've noticed is the cost of living here. It's still very much more affordable to live here compared to the United States. In fact, we recently did a comparison of food staples in Mexico versus San Francisco, in San Miguel de Allende versus San Francisco. So two very expensive cities to live in their respective countries. And San Francisco turned out to be, what was it, 217% more expensive for the identical products than in San Miguel de Allende. So it's certainly a lot less expensive to live here still. But I feel like the gap is shrinking. I feel like it was more affordable 16 years ago.
Way more affordable
than today.
But inflation has really hit us in Mexico, and San Miguel is no exception. So things have gotten much more expensive. But if you know how to work it, you can find less expensive things, food, entertainment, restaurants. If you know where to go, it's less expensive. If you want to do rooftop dining and shop at the major grocery store, it's going to be pricier than if you go to the mom and pop store in your local neighborhood and you go to your neighborhood restaurants. So you can still find an inexpensive lifestyle here if that's what you're looking for.
Another thing we've noticed that's changed a little bit here in San Miguel de Allende is the vibe has changed a little bit. When we first came here, we didn't see many high-end boutiques or fancy restaurants.
Yeah, it was more small town feel to it, for
Yes.
sure.
What's happening is San Miguel de Allende has become a top destination for people from other parts of Mexico.
Yes.
And so that's brought in a lot of money from Mexico City and a lot of people from Mexico City with resources. And so now we see a lot of fancier shops here, a lot of really fancy restaurants, rooftop terrace bars and that kind of thing, which is something that we didn't have before.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of rooftop terrace restaurants when we first moved here, which I thought was crazy because the views are spectacular here, but there just weren't. And now, if you don't have a rooftop terrace, it's difficult.
And as far as personal changes, so it's been interesting. Our trajectory has been all over the place. We started out really slow. Like we said earlier, it took us 5 years, 5.5 years for me to make the permanent move and join Antonieta down here because we didn't have that much income at first. And then we had a few years of really excellent growth. Thanks to the rise in tourism in San Miguel, our business did fairly well.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
And then COVID hit.
Everything shut down just like it did for you, I'm sure, and wherever you're watching us from. We were especially hit hard because our business relied on visitors and nobody was traveling.
Yeah.
And even though we were allowed to reopen 6 months after COVID hit, the reality is nobody was traveling and nobody did travel for a good 1.5 years after that. So for 2 years, we were basically shut down with zero income and costs that continued, like our staff and other expenses that we have. Then after COVID, with the rise in Airbnbs, San Miguel de Allende has over 2,000 short-term rental properties, most of them unregistered and run illegally. That's the fact. But that's hurt our business. And,
Yeah.
We try to do it the right way and we have our permits and we actually run a legitimate licensed, it's considered a hotel as far as the city is concerned.
Yeah.
We have inspections and I think that's an important thing. I think what the Airbnbs here are lacking is the follow-up of inspections for things like leaky gas pipes and things like that. And we've heard tragedies that have happened with visitors staying at these Airbnbs. That's
another topic. Yes.
But that has pulled pulled people away from our business here.
The competition there's just so much. There's so many options for people. There's also lots of new hotels and more on the horizon. So there's tons of competition.
Yes.
Which has made it very difficult because when we first opened, there wasn't a lot here. There weren't a lot of choices. We had enough business that it was sustainable.
And so we've had to get creative. And this is one of the reasons why we've started this channel, is to attract more people to our place, to bring more eyeballs to us and to our business. And we're not directly always talking about our business. We're talking about San Miguel and about Mexico. And hopefully as a side product, that'll also bring you to stay with us.
So we think that you can notice that we've changed positions. It is now 11 hours later. It's now almost 7 o'clock in the evening. And now the sun is setting behind us. Unfortunately, work got in the way of our recording today and we had to go take care of our guests. And now we are back.
So we're going to continue on now with the third part of our video, which is, would we still move here today? And that's a tough one because when we did this 16 years ago or almost 20 years ago when we started this whole thing, we didn't know very much about San Miguel. All we knew is we wanted to change.
Yeah.
And I really wonder what would have happened if we had met the guy who sold us the project back then with as little knowledge of San Miguel as we knew, other than what we had witnessed from our few days here. So that's a tricky one. We might have made that same decision.
I think we would have made the same decision. And I don't think that we've made a mistake by moving here. I think that we've enjoyed all of these years living here and still living here. I don't regret anything that we've done. It has not been easy as far as having a business, but it changed our lives.
Yeah.
It enriched our lives, and I don't regret any of it at all.
Neither do I. Now, if this was 2025 and we were our 35-year-old selves looking for a change, would we do what we did back then today? Maybe not. I think with today's opportunities to work online or have some sort of different type of job that would allow us to move to San Miguel, we probably would have taken that route and figured out what else we could have done as remote work. But San Miguel would definitely be high on our list of
Yes,
places
still.
to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't ever regret living in this town. It's we've loved it here. We've loved living here, all of our time here.
So yes, San Miguel would be high on our list even today. And especially now that we know what San Miguel is about, it would be probably, I don't know, top 5 on our list of
Yeah.
places to move.
And when you said, would we do it now in 2025, knowing what we know now as business owners, it's not the easiest place to run a business.
Having a business in San Miguel or in Mexico in general is doable. Don't get us wrong, it is
Yeah,
doable.
it's doable.
In many ways, it's a lot easier to open a business and run a business here than it is in the States, because even though there are regulations that we need to follow and rules and laws and permitting and all that, things seem to be a little more relaxed here. So for example, when we have to get a permit, the city will actually allow us to operate as we're going through the process of getting a permit, compared to when we were in San Francisco and we were getting our use permit for the business that we had up there. We couldn't start operating until we had that use permit. But there's also difficulties with running a business here. And this is just from our point of view, from our experience of running a hotel, a boutique inn. It's not as easy as one might suspect.
I remember someone asking us, how does it feel to be retired living in Mexico? And I said, what do you mean retired? And they were guests in the B&B, so obviously they knew that we owned the B&B and we were running our B&B. And I said, what do you mean retired? They said, oh, because, people usually buy a B&B and run a B&B in their retirement years. And I looked at them like, we are not retired running a B&B. It is a full-time gig. It is 24 hours a day sometimes. You're always on. You always need to be available. And we're very hands-on in our business. So we live on the premises and we host our guests. And so we're very available to everyone. So we are not retired.
Not even close. San Miguel de Allende and Mexico in general is not for everyone. You have to be flexible. That's a good way to put it, right? You have to be adaptable to new environments. You have to have patience. You have to accept that things are not going to occur exactly as you think they might. In fact, we just did a video that came out last week. Be sure to watch that. It's all about the top reasons why moving to Mexico might not be for you.
Yeah.
And it's everyday challenges that we experience on a daily basis.
I mean, we've encountered lots of people who we've met throughout the years who've come here, bought homes, lasted a year, maybe 2, and then realized that Mexico was not for them and they didn't want to be full-time residents, and they ended up selling homes and moving back.
How many people have we had that came here and stayed with us initially and then went off to buy their home? And how many of those people are still here?
Yeah, I wonder, because we don't know all of them, but we do know of a few that bought homes and went back because it wasn't the place for them. You're in another country and you have to accept that you're living in another country and things are not going to work the way you want them to work. And you have to be okay with that and be flexible and go with the flow. And it's something that we talk about in the video that came out last week.
But if you can handle those changes, Mexico is marvelous. We love it here.
Yeah. After 16 years of living here, for me, full-time, and for Francisco's full-time since 2014, we're very happy living in Mexico and we really enjoy our lives here. Do we see ourselves, people ask us this all the time, do you see yourself living here forever? It's a common question from our guests that stay with us. And I would say, having lived in Mexico for 16 years has made me realize that I could live in other parts of the world also.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Just living here has proven to ourselves that we are adaptable. And we could probably go to a whole other culture, not another Latin American country, for example, but maybe to an Asian culture or a European culture.
Yeah.
and learn the local customs and fit right in. That would be so exciting for us to get to do something like that. The experience of moving away from the place where we grew up to a whole different place has really opened so many doors for us. We aren't as afraid as we probably would have been had we never left San Francisco, the place where we grew up. How about you? Do you think you could move to a place like San Miguel de Allende or Mexico in general?
Or somewhere else in the world.
We'd love to know your stories. Leave us a comment and we'll read them all and we'll probably reply to
We
you.
reply to all of them too.
So thank you for joining us today. This was a different type of video for us.
Yes.
And I hope you're enjoying the sunset behind us. This is something that we never get tired of seeing. After all these years, we're
Yes.
always peeking out the window
Yes.
to see what the sunset looks like.
Yesterday we had one of the best ones we've had in a really long time.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. Maybe we'll insert a little video of yesterday's sunset. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Good night.